In the summer of 1983, 7 children vanished without a trace from Camp Whispering Pines in Washington state. For 41 years, their disappearance remained one of the Pacific Northwest's most haunting, unsolved mysteries. Then, in August 2024, a wildfire tearing through the Cascade foothills exposed something that had been hidden beneath the forest floor for 4 decades. A network of concrete bunkers filled with the remnants of young lives that never made it home. What investigators found inside those underground chambers would reveal a truth far more disturbing than abduction or murder. A meticulously constructed false reality, designed to convince children that the world above had ended in nuclear fire. While their families searched desperately, these 7 children lived and died believing they were the last survivors of humanity, trapped in a nightmare orchestrated by the one person they trusted to keep them safe. This is the story of what happened beneath Camp Whispering Pines and the sister who never stopped searching. Subscribe and follow for more deep-dive true crime investigations into cases that changed families forever. July 1983. Vanessa Kellerman was 12 years old the morning her brother disappeared. She remembered the smell of the morning, damp pine needles and the lingering smoke from the previous night's campfire. The air in the Cascade Mountains held a particular coolness even in summer, the kind that made you grateful for a sweatshirt until the sun climbed higher and burned it away. Vanessa sat outside her cabin, Cabin 7, braiding friendship bracelets with 2 other girls from her group. Across the central clearing of Camp Whispering Pines, she could see Cabin 3, where her 9-year-old brother Owen had been assigned. The junior campers were supposed to go on a nature hike that morning. She had watched them assemble after breakfast, 7 children ranging from 8 to 10 years old, their backpacks loaded with water bottles and trail mix. Mr. Fairmont, the assistant camp director, had led them toward the Eastern Trail. Douglas Fairmont was popular with the younger kids. He told stories, knew the names of every bird and plant, and never got impatient when children asked endless questions. Vanessa's mother had been relieved that Owen would have such an attentive counselor. "Your brother's so lucky," her cabin mate Jessica had said that morning. "Mr. Fairmont's group always gets to do the cool stuff." Vanessa had nodded, watching Owen's small figure disappear into the tree line. He had turned back once, waving enthusiastically. She had waved back. That was the last time she saw him. By dinner time, the junior group hadn't returned. The camp director, a nervous woman named Patricia Vowell, initially explained that the hike must have run long, that Mr. Fairmont was probably letting the children explore. But as darkness fell and the temperature dropped, panic set in. Vanessa remembered sitting in the dining hall with the other campers, forbidden to leave while counselors and staff fanned out into the forest with flashlights. She remembered the beam of light cutting through the windows, the sound of voices calling names into the vast darkness. "Owen, Amy, Jacob, Lily, Marcus, Hannah, Sophie." 7 names, 7 children, gone. Search and rescue teams arrived the next morning. Vanessa and the other campers were sent home to their families, but Vanessa's parents had stayed, refusing to leave the mountain without Owen. She stayed with her grandmother for 3 weeks while helicopters circled overhead and search dogs followed trails that led nowhere. Douglas Fairmont's body was found on the 4th day of searching, at the bottom of a ravine 2 miles from camp. The fall had broken his neck. His backpack was still on his shoulders, his hiking boots unlaced. The official theory suggested he had fallen while trying to get help after the children became lost, though no one could explain why 7 children would have simply vanished while their counselor went for help. No other bodies were found. No clothing, no backpacks, no trace. The camp closed permanently that autumn. The investigation eventually went cold, and Vanessa Kellerman, who had waved goodbye to her brother on a sunny July morning, carried the weight of that moment for the next 41 years. She never stopped looking for answers. August 2024. The fire started on a Tuesday. Vanessa was in her home office in Seattle when her phone alert chimed with the news. A wildfire in the Cascade foothills, spreading rapidly through drought-dried timber near the old Camp Whispering Pines property. She stared at the notification for a long moment, her chest tightening with something that felt like both dread and dark anticipation. For 4 decades, that forest had kept its secrets. Now it was burning. She called her husband at work. "I need to go up there." Marcus didn't argue. He had lived with Vanessa's obsession for their entire 20-year marriage, understanding that the missing piece of her childhood would always pull her back. How long? I don't know. A few days, maybe. By Wednesday afternoon, she was driving north on Interstate 5, her car packed with file boxes she had kept since 1983. Newspaper clippings, police reports obtained through public records requests, maps she had marked and remarked over the years. The fire was 50% contained now, according to the radio. Evacuations had been lifted in some areas. She reached the small town of Millridge by early evening. The air tasted like smoke, and a haze hung over the mountains. Vanessa checked into the same motel she always stayed at when she made these pilgrimages, a roadside place called the Timberline Inn. The owner, an elderly woman named Ruth, recognized her immediately. "Vanessa, I saw the news about the fire." Ruth's expression was sympathetic. "Terrible thing." "Yes." Vanessa signed the register with hands that had started to shake somewhere around mile marker 142. "Has anyone been up to the old camp property since the fire?" Ruth shook her head. "Roads are still closed. Forest Service won't let anyone through until they're sure it's safe." Vanessa took her room key and carried her overnight bag up the exterior stairs to room 214, the same room she always requested. Through the window, she could see the mountain ridge where Camp Whispering Pines had once stood. She didn't sleep that night. Instead, she sat at the small desk, reviewing files she had memorized years ago, studying photographs of 7 smiling children who had never come home. Owen Kellerman, 9 years old. Her brother, Amy Winters, 8. Blonde pigtails, gap-toothed smile. Jacob Morse, 10. Freckles across his nose, baseball cap worn backward. Lily Torres, 9. Dark eyes, serious expression even in the camp photo. Marcus Webb, 8. The smallest of the group, shy. Hannah Driscoll, 10. Confident, athletic, the kind of girl who climbed trees. Sophie Blake, 9. Red hair, glasses, a book always in her hands. 7 children, 41 years. Her phone rang at 6 in the morning. Unknown number. "Ms. Kellerman?" A woman's voice, professional. "This is Detective Rita Holbrook with the Washington State Police. I understand you've been researching the 1983 Camp Whispering Pines disappearances." Vanessa's pulse quickened. "Yes, for 41 years. The forest fire exposed some structures on the old camp property. I think you should come up here." "What kind of structures?" There was a pause. "Ma'am, I'd prefer to show you in person. How soon can you get to the access road checkpoint?" 20 minutes later, Vanessa was following a police cruiser up a fire-damaged logging road. The forest was a graveyard of blackened trunks and ash-covered ground. Where thick undergrowth had once concealed the landscape, the fire had stripped everything bare. Detective Holbrook was a tall woman in her 40s with gray-streaked hair pulled into a practical ponytail. She met Vanessa at a newly established perimeter, yellow tape strung between scorched trees. "Before we go further," the detective said, "I need to prepare you. What we found is disturbing." Vanessa's throat was dry. "I've been preparing for 41 years. They walked through the burn zone for nearly 15 minutes. The old camp buildings were long gone, demolished decades ago. But Vanessa recognized the topography, the slope of the land, the position of certain boulders. They were on the eastern edge of the property, near where the junior hiking group had entered the forest that July morning. Detective Holbrook stopped near a collapsed section of ground. The fire burned hot enough to compromise some underground structures. The ground gave way 2 days ago. Vanessa approached the edge and looked down. Concrete stairs descended into darkness. The entrance had been concealed beneath years of soil and vegetation, invisible until the fire had consumed everything above it. Even now, she could see where someone had carefully camouflaged the structure. The concrete had been textured to look like natural rock, painted in earth tones that would blend with the forest floor. "There are 3 separate bunker systems," Detective Holbrook said quietly. "Connected by tunnels. We've only done a preliminary survey, but we've found remains, Ms. Kellerman. Children's remains, and evidence of long-term habitation." Vanessa's legs felt unsteady. "How long?" "We won't know for certain until forensics completes their analysis, but based on what we've seen, years. Someone kept children alive down there for years." The detective gestured toward a staging area where other investigators were suiting up in protective gear. "We're bringing in a full forensic team. Anthropologists, archaeologists, cadaver dogs. This is now a crime scene recovery operation." "I want to go down there." Detective Holbrook studied her face. "Ms. Kellerman, I can't allow—" "My brother is down there." Vanessa's voice was steady despite the tremor in her hands. "I've spent 4 decades wondering what happened to him. I need to see." The detective was quiet for a long moment. Then she nodded toward the staging area. "Suit up. Stay close to me. Touch nothing." 10 minutes later, Vanessa descended into the earth. The stairs were steep, carved concrete that led down at least 20 feet. Battery-powered work lights had been strung along the walls, casting harsh shadows. The air grew cooler as they descended, carrying a smell that Vanessa couldn't immediately identify. Something stale and old, like opening a sealed room that hadn't seen daylight in decades. The stairs opened into a corridor. Concrete walls, approximately 7 feet high and 4 feet wide. Metal doors lined both sides, each with a small viewing slot and heavy deadbolt locks. "We've identified 3 main chambers so far," Detective Holbrook said, her voice echoing slightly. "This appears to be the primary bunker. The others are smaller, possibly storage or secondary living areas." She led Vanessa to the first open door. The room beyond was approximately 12 by 15 feet. Bunk beds lined the walls, simple metal frames with thin mattresses that had decomposed into moldy fragments. A folding table stood in the center with small wooden chairs around it, child-sized. On the walls, someone had hung educational posters, world maps, multiplication tables, the periodic table of elements. But what froze Vanessa's breath were the children's drawings taped to every available surface. Crude crayon sketches of mushroom clouds, nuclear explosions, skeletal figures, burning cities, and above one of the bunks, drawn in careful child's handwriting, Day 847. Still no signal from the surface. God save us. "We think this was a dormitory," Detective Holbrook said quietly. "The bunker system includes what looks like a classroom, a supply room, a rudimentary medical area, and primitive bathroom facilities. Everything someone would need to keep children alive underground for an extended period." Vanessa moved to the bunk with a written message. Beneath it, she found something that made her heart stop. A small carved wooden horse, no bigger than her palm. Owen had carried one just like it, a gift from their grandfather. "We're documenting everything before we move any items," the detective said. "But I wanted you to see the scope of what we're dealing with. Ms. Kellerman, someone constructed an elaborate survival shelter and kept those children down here, possibly for years. The drawings, the messages on the walls, they believed the world above had been destroyed." Vanessa touched the wall where a child had written, "Is anyone alive up there?" "They thought it was real," she whispered. "They thought nuclear war had actually happened. That's our current theory. We've found what appears to be a makeshift radio in one of the other chambers. Completely non-functional, but rigged to produce static and occasional emergency broadcasts that reinforced the narrative." Detective Holbrook led her deeper into the bunker complex. They passed through the tunnel connecting to the second structure, their footsteps echoing on concrete. More rooms. More evidence of children's lives lived in darkness. School lessons written on chalkboards. A calendar on one wall marked off day by day, the count reaching into the thousands before stopping abruptly. In what appeared to be the medical area, they found the first remains. A small skeleton lay on a cot, covered with a decomposed blanket. The bones were arranged carefully, hands folded across the chest. A plastic hospital bracelet still circled one wrist, the writing too faded to read. "We've found 4 sets of remains so far," the detective said softly. "All children, based on bone structure. Cause of death unknown until the medical examiner completes the analysis, but there's no obvious trauma." "Illness," Vanessa said hollowly. "You said some died from illness." "That's speculation at this point. But yes, in a confined underground environment with limited medical resources, illness would be a significant threat." They moved through the complex for another hour. Each room revealed new horrors. A punishment cell barely large enough to stand in, scratch marks on the concrete walls. A supply room with rusted cans of food and gallon jugs of water. A workshop with tools and what appeared to be ventilation equipment. And everywhere, the children's presence. Handprints on walls, names carved into wooden surfaces, drawings and writings that documented a childhood lived in perpetual fear and darkness. When they finally emerged back into daylight, Vanessa's eyes burned from more than just the bright sun. Detective Holbrook removed her protective gear and studied Vanessa's face. "I know this is overwhelming, but I need to ask, does anything you saw down there help identify which children were kept here?" Vanessa thought about the wooden horse, about the handwriting on the walls, about 41 years of waiting for answers. "I need to see everything," she said. "Every item, every piece of evidence. I've memorized details about those children that might seem insignificant to your team but could be crucial for identification." The detective nodded. "We'll arrange it. Ms. Kellerman, there's one more thing you should know. We found evidence that suggests not all 7 children died in the bunkers." Vanessa stared at her. "What?" "The calendar I showed you. It was maintained for over 8 years. But we've only recovered 4 sets of remains so far. We're still searching, but there's a possibility that some children survived longer than others. Possibly long enough to escape." Vanessa's voice was barely audible. "Or to be released. We found journals, written by an adult, documenting what he called the program. Ms. Kellerman, Douglas Fairmont didn't die in that ravine by accident, and I don't think he was working alone." The forensic team arrived in force by Thursday morning. Vanessa watched from the perimeter as white-suited technicians descended into the bunkers like spelunkers entering a tomb. She had spent the night in her motel room, unable to close her eyes without seeing those children's drawings, those desperate messages written on concrete walls. Day 847. Still no signal. Detective Holbrook had set up a command center in a temporary trailer at the Access Road checkpoint. When Vanessa arrived at 7 in the morning, the detective was already reviewing preliminary reports with her team. "Ms. Kellerman," Holbrook looked up from her laptop. "I was about to call you. We've made significant progress overnight." She gestured for Vanessa to join her at a folding table covered with photographs and documents. "We've now identified the remains of 6 children. The 7th is still unaccounted for." Vanessa's pulse quickened. 6. 2 more were found in the 3rd bunker structure, which we fully excavated last night. All 6 show signs of death occurring over a span of several years. Different stages of decomposition, different burial methods. The earliest death appears to have occurred approximately 6 to 9 months after the initial abduction. Holbrook spread out a series of photographs. "We're working with dental records and DNA when possible, but I wanted to show you some personal items we've recovered. Given your research, you might recognize something that could expedite identification." The photographs showed artifacts carefully cataloged and numbered. A plastic barrette shaped like a butterfly, a digital watch with a cracked face, a pair of wire-rimmed glasses, a baseball card in a protective sleeve, a small purple diary with a broken lock. Vanessa's hand trembled as she pointed to the glasses. Sophie Blake wore glasses like those. Wire frames, slightly bent on the left side. She had sat on them the first day of camp. She moved her finger to the baseball card. Jacob Morse collected baseball cards. He had talked about bringing his favorite ones to show the other kids. One by one, she identified items. The butterfly beret belonged to Amy Winters. Vanessa remembered because Amy had worn it in the camp photo, proudly showing off the new accessory. The purple diary was Hannah Driscoll's. She had written in it every night before bed, much to her cabin mates' annoyance when they wanted lights out. "This is incredibly helpful," Holbrook said, making notes. "We'll cross-reference with the DNA analysis, but this gives us a preliminary framework." Vanessa stared at the photographs. 6 children identified. "Which one is missing?" "We won't know for certain until we have confirmed DNA matches. But based on the items you've identified and the remains we've found, we can make educated guesses about who the 6 are. The 7th, the one whose remains we haven't found, is most likely the one who survived longest. Or escaped. Holbrook agreed quietly. A young officer appeared in the trailer doorway. "Detective, Dr. Chen is ready to brief you on the journals." They walked to a second trailer that had been converted into a temporary forensics lab. Inside, a woman in her 50s with silver-streaked black hair was examining a series of water-damaged notebooks through a magnifying lens. She looked up as they entered. "Dr. Patricia Chen," Holbrook introduced, "our lead forensic anthropologist. Dr. Chen, this is Vanessa Kellerman, sister of one of the victims." Dr. Chen's expression was sympathetic. "Ms. Kellerman, I'm very sorry for what your family has endured." She gestured to the notebooks spread across her workspace. "We found these in a locked metal box in what we believe was Douglas Fairmont's personal quarters, a small room separated from the children's areas." She carefully turned the pages of the first journal. "These are handwritten accounts documenting what Fairmont called Project Preservation. Based on the entries, he had been planning this for at least 2 years before the abductions occurred." Vanessa leaned closer, reading the spidery handwriting. June 15th, 1981. "The bunker construction is complete. 3 chambers, fully stocked for 5 years minimum. The children will be safe here when it happens. They'll understand eventually. They'll thank me for saving them." "He was delusional," Dr. Chen said. "The journals show a progressive descent into paranoia about nuclear war. He genuinely believed he was saving these children from imminent destruction." She turned to another entry, July 2nd, 1983. "The children adapted more quickly than expected. The radio broadcasts were convincing. Young Marcus cried for his mother the first week, but Lily helped comfort him. They're forming a family unit. It's beautiful to watch humanity's resilience." Vanessa's stomach churned. He thought he was conducting some kind of experiment? "More than that," Holbrook said. "He believed he was ensuring the survival of humanity. Look at this entry from 6 months in." Dr. Chen turned to a page marked with her evidence tag. January 1984. "We lost Amy today. The fever took her despite my best efforts. I held a burial ceremony in Chamber 3. The other children sang hymns. They understand death now in a way surface children never could. They're stronger for it. This is what the new world needs. Children who understand survival." He documented every death. Dr. Chen said quietly. Amy Winters in January 1984. Jacob Morse in June 1984. An accident during an escape drill Fairmont had designed. Marcus Webb in September 1985 from what sounds like pneumonia. Hannah Driscoll in March 1986. The entry suggests she tried to escape through the ventilation system and became trapped. Each name was a knife in Vanessa's chest. Children she had known, had played with during that brief week at camp before the world shattered. "What about the others?" she asked. "Lily Torres and Sophie Blake." Dr. Chen turned to the final pages of the journal. Sophie died in November 1987. Fairmont's entry suggests she deliberately stopped eating, what we would recognize now as a psychological breakdown. She was 18 by then, had spent her entire adolescence underground. And Lily? That's where it gets complicated. Dr. Chen exchanged a glance with Detective Holbrook. The journals end in May 1991, 8 years after the abductions. The final entry reads, "Lily passed her final test today. She's ready for the surface. Project preservation is complete. One child survived to carry forward the knowledge of endurance. She will rebuild." Vanessa stared at the words. He let her go. Or she escaped, Holbrook said. But either way, Ms. Kellerman, we believe Lily Torres survived. She would have been 17 years old in 1991, and if she's still alive, she would be 50 today. The implications crashed over Vanessa like a wave. You're telling me one of those children has been living in the world for the past 33 years? Does she know who she is? That's what we need to determine. Holbrook pulled out a photograph, the original camp photo of Lily Torres. 9 years old, dark hair in braids, serious eyes looking directly at the camera. If Fairmont truly believed nuclear war had destroyed civilization, he might have maintained that fiction even when releasing her. She could have integrated into society believing she was someone else entirely, with no knowledge of her real identity or family. Dr. Chen added, the psychological impact of 8 years in an underground bunker, believing the world had ended, would be profound. If she was released or escaped, she might have experienced severe disorientation, memory issues, or psychological trauma that affected her sense of self. Vanessa looked at the photograph of 9-year-old Lily, trying to imagine that child as a 50-year-old woman walking around somewhere, perhaps passing her on the street, neither knowing the connection they shared through that terrible summer. "We need to find her," Vanessa said. "We're already starting," Holbrook replied. "But Ms. Kellerman, you need to understand, if Lily Torres is alive and has no memory of her true identity, making contact could be psychologically devastating. We'll need to proceed very carefully." An officer knocked on the trailer door. "Detective, we found something else in the third bunker. You should see this." They followed him back through the burn zone to the bunker entrance. The work lights had been extended deeper into the tunnel system, illuminating areas that had been darkness for 40 years. In the farthest chamber, a technician pointed to a wall that had been hidden behind a collapsed section of shelving. Someone had carved words into the concrete, each letter painstakingly deep. Lily Torres, 1975 to 1991. I was here. I survived. If anyone finds this, my name is Lily Torres. I existed. Below the words, a handprint pressed into the concrete while it was still wet, preserved for decades. She knew, Vanessa whispered. She knew who she was. Detective Holbrook photographed the carving from multiple angles. This changes things. If she left this message, she was fighting to maintain her identity, which means when she left this bunker, she knew her real name. Then why didn't she come forward? Vanessa demanded. Why didn't she contact police? Tell someone what happened? Fear, trauma, confusion, any number of reasons. Dr. Chen studied the handprint. Or perhaps she did try and wasn't believed. A traumatized 17-year-old girl claiming to be one of the children who disappeared 8 years earlier, without physical evidence, without being able to lead authorities back to this location. It would have seemed like delusion. Vanessa touched the wall beside the carving, feeling the rough concrete. We have to find her. She's the only one who can tell us what really happened down here. We will, Holbrook promised. We'll start with missing person reports from 1991, Jane Doe cases, hospital admissions for traumatized young women. We'll find her. But as Vanessa stared at those carved words, I existed. She wondered if Lily Torres wanted to be found, or if after 8 years in hell and 33 years of whatever came after, she had built a new life and buried the old one so deep that excavating it would destroy her all over again. By Friday morning, the bunker excavation had become a full-scale archaeological operation. Vanessa arrived at the site to find the perimeter expanded, additional trailers brought in, and a team of specialists documenting every square inch of the underground complex. She had barely slept again, her mind cycling through the same impossible question: where was Lily Torres? Detective Holbrook met her at the command trailer with coffee and a grim expression. We ran Lily's information through every database we have access to. Missing persons, unidentified remains, hospital admissions, social security records. Nothing matches. How is that possible? Vanessa wrapped her hands around the coffee cup, seeking warmth despite the August heat. She would have needed identification, medical care, some kind of documentation to exist in society. Unless she's using a different identity, or someone helped her create one. Holbrook pulled up a digital file on her laptop. We're looking into Douglas Fairmont's background now, specifically anyone he might have been in contact with. If he planned this for years, he might have had accomplices. A new detective entered the trailer, a man in his 30s with sharp features and tired eyes. Detective Chen, Homicide Division. He introduced himself. I've been reviewing Fairmont's death investigation from 1983. Vanessa straightened. You think his death wasn't accidental? I think it wasn't thoroughly investigated at the time because everyone assumed he died trying to get help for lost children. But look at this. He spread out crime scene photos from 1983. Douglas Fairmont's body at the bottom of a ravine, his neck broken. The medical examiner noted defensive wounds on his hands, bruising that suggested he'd been in a physical altercation before the fall. Detective Holbrook leaned forward. You're saying someone pushed him? I'm saying someone fought with him, and he ended up dead. The question is who? Chen pulled out another document. I also pulled his financial records. In the 2 years before the abductions, he made large cash withdrawals, over $40,000 total. That money went somewhere. The bunkers, Vanessa said. Construction, supplies, everything needed to keep children alive underground for years. Exactly, but here's what's interesting. The withdrawals continued after his death. Someone accessed his bank account in September 1983, 2 months after he died, and withdrew another $5,000. The implication hung in the air. Holbrook voiced it first. He had a partner, or multiple partners. Chen agreed. Someone who knew about the bunkers and continued to maintain them after Fairmont's death. Someone who kept those children underground for 8 more years. Vanessa felt cold despite the coffee. You're telling me this wasn't just one disturbed man's delusion. There were others involved. Before anyone could answer, Dr. Patricia Chen appeared in the doorway, her expression troubled. We've completed the preliminary analysis of the remains. You need to hear this. They gathered around as the forensic anthropologist pulled up her report on a tablet. The 6 children we've identified all show evidence of malnutrition and vitamin deficiencies consistent with limited diet and lack of sunlight. But there are other findings that concern me. She swiped to a series of medical images. Multiple healed fractures in different stages of healing, bone scarring consistent with repeated trauma. And on 2 of the remains, we found evidence of restraint injuries, damage to wrist and ankle bones suggesting they were bound for extended periods. He hurt them, Vanessa said hollowly, or they hurt each other. Dr. Chen pulled up another image. We found what appears to be a makeshift weapon in one of the chambers, a metal pipe with dried blood on it. The DNA is degraded, but we're testing it. Ms. Kellerman, 7 children living in a confined space for years, under extreme psychological stress, being told the world above was destroyed. The conditions would have been volatile. Vanessa thought about the drawings she'd seen, the scratched walls in the punishment cell, the calendar marked off day by day by day. Lord of the Flies, she whispered. In essence, yes. Fairmont's journals mention implementing a governance structure. He made the older children responsible for the younger ones, created rules and punishments, essentially built a microcosm society. But when he died, that structure would have collapsed. Detective Holbrook was studying the medical images. If Fairmont died in July 1983, and someone else continued supplying the bunkers until at least 1991, who was in charge during those 8 years? The children themselves, Dr. Chen said quietly. Or rather, whoever became the dominant force among them. The journals suggest Lily Torres was one of the oldest and most intelligent. If she survived when the others didn't, she might have done so by becoming a survivor at any cost, Vanessa finished. The thought made her sick. A 9-year-old girl transformed over 8 years into whatever she needed to be to stay alive. Detective Chen pulled out his phone. I'm putting in a request to review all documented cases of feral children, extreme isolation trauma, and cult deprogramming from the early 1990s. If Lily Torres emerged from those bunkers, someone might have encountered her in a professional capacity. An officer knocked on the trailer frame. Detective Holbrook, we've found something in Fairmont's quarters, a hidden compartment behind the wall. They followed him back into the bunkers. Vanessa had been underground 3 times now, but the descent still made her chest tight. The air tasted stale and chemical from the preservatives the forensic team was using. Work lights cast harsh shadows that made the children's drawings seem to move. In Fairmont's small private room, barely larger than a closet, with a narrow cot and small desk, technicians had removed a section of concrete wall to reveal a metal box welded into the structure. The box was open now, its contents spread carefully on a plastic sheet. Photographs, dozens of them. Not of the children, but of families. Vanessa recognized Owen's 3rd-grade school photo, the one her parents had given to the police. Beside it, photos of their house, their car, their family at a picnic. Surveillance photos. He stalked all of them, Detective Holbrook said, moving along the line of images. Every child, every family. This wasn't random selection. He chose them deliberately. Vanessa found the photos of the Torres family. Lily with her parents playing in a backyard. Lily at a birthday party. Lily walking to school. An entire childhood documented by a predator. But there was something else in the box. A stack of letters still in their envelopes addressed to various parents. They had never been mailed. Detective Holbrook carefully opened one addressed to Owen's parents, Vanessa's mother and father. The handwriting was childish, uneven. Dear Mom and Dad, Mr. Fairmont says we have to stay underground because of the bombs. He says you're gone now, but I don't believe him. When can I come home? Owen. The date at the top read September 1983. He made them write letters, Vanessa said, her voice breaking. He made them write to parents he'd told them were dead. More letters from all the children. Some angry, some pleading. Some matter-of-fact reports about life underground. All unsent. All preserved in Fairmont's hidden compartment like trophies. The last letter was different. Written in more mature handwriting dated April 1991. To whoever finds this, my name is Lily Torres. I was taken from Camp Whispering Pines in July 1983. 6 other children were taken with me. They're all dead now. Mr. Fairmont is dead too. I watched him fall in the forest when he tried to take me up to the surface the first time, before we came to the bunkers. He was supposed to take just me on a special nature walk, but the other kids followed, and then everything went wrong. He told us the bombs fell. He made us believe it for so long, but I know the truth now. I found his journals. I found everything. I'm 17 years old. I've been underground for 8 years. I don't know if I can survive up there anymore. I don't know if anyone will believe me. I don't know if my parents are still looking. If you find this and I'm gone, please know I tried. Please know we all tried. Lily Vanessa's hands shook as she read. She knew. Before she left, she knew it was all a lie. But she still left this letter here instead of taking it with her, Detective Holbrook observed. Why? Dr. Chen had been examining the letter carefully. Look at the handwriting. It degrades toward the end, becomes more erratic. And this sentence here, I don't know if I can survive up there anymore. This is someone who's been psychologically conditioned to fear the surface world. Even knowing it was a lie, the fear would have been real. So she leaves, knowing the truth, but too traumatized to trust it, Vanessa said. What would that do to a person? Fragment their identity, Dr. Chen replied. She might have dissociated, created new personas as a survival mechanism, or she might have simply walked away and tried to forget any of this ever happened, burying Lily Torres so deep she became someone else entirely. Detective Chen was photographing the letters. These give us more to work with. We can cross-reference the handwriting with any documents a Jane Doe from that period might have signed. Hospital intake forms, police reports, social service records. They spent another 2 hours in the bunkers, documenting everything. Vanessa found herself drawn to the wall where Lily had carved her name. She stood there, touching the concrete, trying to understand what it took to maintain your identity in a place designed to erase it. When they finally emerged back to the surface, the sun was setting, painting the burned forest in shades of orange and red. Vanessa's phone buzzed with a text from her husband. "How are you holding up?" She didn't know how to answer. She had spent 41 years wanting answers, and now that she had them, they were so much worse than anything she'd imagined. That night, back in her motel room, Vanessa spread out her research again. But this time, she wasn't looking at the missing children. She was looking for Lily Torres, not the 9-year-old who disappeared, but the 17-year-old who emerged. Where would she go? What would she do? How would she survive in a world she'd been taught to fear? Vanessa pulled up her laptop and began searching. Hospital records, Jane Doe cases, missing persons who appeared out of nowhere, women in their 40s and 50s with gaps in their personal histories. It was looking for a ghost, but Vanessa had been searching for ghosts for 4 decades. She would find Lily Torres. She owed it to Owen, to all the children who never came home. And she owed it to the 17-year-old girl who carved her name in concrete and walked out of that bunker into an uncertain world. Somewhere out there, Lily Torres was living a life, and Vanessa was going to find her. The breakthrough came on Sunday afternoon, when Vanessa was least expecting it. She had been at the site since dawn, watching the forensic team continue their meticulous documentation. The excavation had revealed even more disturbing details. A crude library of survival manuals and Cold War propaganda, a makeshift classroom where Fairmont had apparently taught the children about radiation and nuclear winter, and most horrifying, a small isolation cell where writing on the walls suggested children had been locked in darkness for days as punishment. Detective Holbrook found Vanessa sitting outside the command trailer, staring at the mountains with red-rimmed eyes. "We got a hit," the detective said without preamble. "Hospital records from Sacred Heart Medical Center in Spokane. September 14th, 1991. A Jane Doe, approximately 17 years old, brought in by a truck driver who found her walking along Highway 2 near Leavenworth." Vanessa's exhaustion vanished. "That's less than 50 miles from here." The intake notes describe her as severely malnourished, suffering from photophobia, extreme sensitivity to light, and exhibiting signs of severe psychological trauma. She wouldn't speak for the first 3 days. When she finally did, she gave her name as Lily. Just Lily? Just Lily. No last name. She claimed she'd been living in a survivalist compound with her father who had recently died, and she didn't know how to find her way back. The hospital tried to verify her story, but she became agitated when they pressed for details. Social services was called, but before they could complete their evaluation, she disappeared from the hospital. Vanessa leaned forward. Someone helped her leave? Possibly, or she just walked out. The hospital records note that she seemed terrified of being registered or documented. She kept asking if they were going to put her in the system. Detective Chen joined them, holding a folder. "I pulled the hospital security footage from that week. It still exists on archived VHS. The quality is terrible, but we have images." He opened the folder to reveal grainy still photographs printed from video. A thin girl in an oversized hospital gown, dark hair hanging limply around her face, eyes wide and frightened as she looked at the camera. Her face was gaunt, her posture defensive. Vanessa compared the image to the camp photo of 9-year-old Lily Torres. 8 years of horror had transformed a child into this frightened, skeletal young woman. But the bone structure was similar. The set of the eyes, the shape of the mouth. "It could be her," Vanessa said. "Can we enhance the image?" "Already working on it, but there's more." Detective Holbrook pulled up a document on her tablet. The truck driver who brought her in, a man named Robert Henshaw, made a statement to police when the girl disappeared from the hospital. He said he'd found her just after sunrise, walking in the middle of the highway wearing clothes that looked decades old. When he stopped to help, she initially ran from his truck, then collapsed from exhaustion. Did he say anything else about her behavior? He noted that she seemed confused about basic things. What year it was, what cars looked like, how modern highway signs worked. He initially thought she might be Amish or from some isolated religious community. She asked him if the war was over. Vanessa's chest tightened. She still believed it. Even after leaving the bunkers, part of her still believed the nuclear war had happened. "Cognitive dissonance," Dr. Patricia Chen said, joining their group. She had been reviewing psychological profiles of extreme isolation cases. 8 years of reinforced belief doesn't disappear just because you see evidence to the contrary. Her mind would have struggled to reconcile what she'd been taught with what she was seeing. It's possible she experienced a complete psychological break. Detective Chen flipped through more documents. After she disappeared from Sacred Heart, there's no official record of anyone matching her description. But I've been going through police reports and social service files from late 1991 to early 1992. There are 3 incidents that might be relevant. He spread out the reports. October 1991, Seattle. A young woman matching Lily's description was found sleeping in a public library. She told the librarian who discovered her that she was studying the New World. Social services tried to intervene, but she fled. November 1991. Tacoma. A shelter for homeless youth took in a girl calling herself Elena, who claimed to have no memory of her life before waking up on the street. The intake worker noted she seemed highly educated but struggled with basic social interactions and seemed afraid of loud noises and crowds. January 1992, Portland. A young woman was arrested for shoplifting food from a grocery store. She gave her name as El Torres but had no identification. She was held for 72 hours, then released. No follow-up. Vanessa studied each report, her heart racing. It's her. It has to be. She's trying to survive but doesn't know how. The question is what happened after January 1992, Detective Holbrook said. The trail goes cold completely. Either she learned to navigate the system better or someone found her, Vanessa finished. Someone who could help her or hide her. A young forensic technician approached their group, slightly out of breath. Detective Holbrook, we found something in the 3rd bunker. Personal effects that weren't with the remains. A backpack hidden behind a false wall panel. They followed her back underground. Vanessa had stopped counting how many times she'd descended these stairs, but each time felt like descending into a grave. The backpack was laid out in the documentation area, its contents carefully separated and tagged. A flashlight, batteries long dead, a canteen, a small first aid kit, a compass, and a book, a paperback copy of The Stand by Stephen King, its pages yellowed and dog-eared. Survival supplies, Detective Chen observed. She was planning to leave, but it was the final item that made Vanessa's breath catch. A photograph, protected in a plastic bag. The camp photo from 1983. All 7 children standing in front of Camp Whispering Pines main lodge, smiling, unaware that their lives would end or be destroyed within days. Someone had drawn a small X in pencil next to 6 of the faces. Only Lily's image remained unmarked. She marked off each one as they died, Vanessa whispered. She was keeping track of who survived. Dr. Chen examined the photograph carefully. This suggests a level of psychological awareness and planning. She knew what was happening was wrong. She knew she had to remember. Detective Holbrook was studying the backpack itself. There's writing on the inside flap, very small. She angled it toward the light. Written in careful block letters. Lily Maria Torres, DOB 04/12/1974. Parents, Miguel and Rosa. Torres. Home, 2847. Cedar Lane, Olympia, Bawa. I am real. This is real. She was fighting to maintain her identity, Vanessa said, writing it down over and over so she wouldn't forget. The backpack was packed and hidden, Detective Chen noted, which means she was preparing to escape but waited. The question is why? Dr. Patricia Chen had been examining the book. Look at the pages she marked. Passages about rebuilding civilization after disaster, about survival, about holding on to humanity in the face of horror. She was educating herself about how to survive in what she thought was a post-apocalyptic world. Vanessa took the photograph, looking at the 7 smiling children. Owen's face grinned back at her, gap-toothed and happy. She touched his image gently. We need to find Lily's parents, she said. Miguel and Rosa Torres. Are they still alive? Detective Holbrook was already on her phone. Running it now. A pause, then her expression softened with sadness. Miguel Torres died in 1998. Rosa Torres is still alive, age 78, living in a memory care facility in Olympia. Advanced Alzheimer's. So even if we find Lily, her mother might not recognize her. But there might be other family, siblings, cousins, anyone who could help us identify her. They spent the next several hours processing the backpack and its contents. Each item told a story of a young woman preparing to enter a world she'd been taught to fear, armed with nothing but determination and fragments of her identity. As evening approached, Vanessa stood once more beside Lily's wall carving. I was here. I survived. I existed. She pulled out her phone and took a photograph of it, then sent it to Detective Holbrook. I want to release this to the media, Vanessa said when the detective joined her. I know you said we need to be careful, but we're searching for a ghost. If Lily Torres is out there, if she's built a new life, maybe seeing this will trigger something. Maybe she'll come forward. Or maybe it will traumatize her all over again, Holbrook countered. Ms. Kellerman, I understand your urgency, but we need to consider— 41 years, Vanessa interrupted. I've been careful for 41 years. I've waited. I've researched. I've followed every lead that went nowhere. Now we know she survived. We know she's out there somewhere, and every day that passes is another day she's living without knowing people are looking for her. That her mother is still alive. That she has family who never stopped caring. Detective Holbrook was quiet for a moment, then nodded. We'll prepare a press release, but we'll frame it carefully. We won't sensationalize the trauma, and we'll make it clear that anyone with information can contact us confidentially. They emerged from the bunkers to find the site bathed in twilight. Vanessa's phone buzzed with another text from her husband. Coming home soon? She looked back at the entrance to the bunkers, at the burned forest that had hidden secrets for decades, at the mountain where her brother had died and 6 other children had suffered and 1 had somehow survived. Not yet, she texted back. Not until we find her. That night, Vanessa couldn't sleep. She sat in her motel room with her laptop, searching through social media, public records, anything that might connect to a woman in her 50s who had appeared in the system around 1992 with no prior history. It was an impossible task. There were thousands of women who fit that basic profile. But somewhere in that vast sea of data was Lily Torres. And Vanessa was going to find her, no matter how long it took. Her phone rang at 11. Detective Holbrook. We're holding a press conference tomorrow at noon, the detective said. The case is officially being classified as the largest child abduction and serial murder investigation in Washington state history. We'll be releasing information about the bunkers, the victims, and our search for potential survivors. Will you mention Lily by name? Yes, and we'll share an age-progressed image based on the hospital photo and her childhood pictures. Ms. Kellerman, this is going to generate a lot of attention. Are you prepared for that? Vanessa thought about Owen's face in that camp photo, about Lily's desperate carving in the concrete, about 6 children who never got to grow up and one who did but lost herself in the process. I've been preparing for 41 years, she said. Let's find her. The press conference was held in a high school gymnasium in Millridge, the only venue large enough to accommodate the media response. Vanessa stood at the back of the room, watching as Detective Holbrook faced a wall of cameras and journalists. The story had already broken nationally. The discovery of the bunkers, the bodies of 6 children, the search for a potential survivor. Every major news outlet had sent reporters. The gymnasium buzzed with anticipation. On August 20th, 2024, Detective Holbrook began. A wildfire in the Cascade foothills exposed a network of underground bunkers on property adjacent to the former Camp Whispering Pines. Inside these structures, we discovered the remains of 6 children who disappeared from that camp on July 18th, 1983. She displayed photographs on the screen behind her. The bunker entrance, carefully selected images of the interior that showed the scope without being gratuitously disturbing. The room fell silent as journalists absorbed what they were seeing. We have identified the remains as those of Amy Winters, Jacob Morse, Marcus Webb, Hannah Driscoll, Sophie Blake, and Owen Kellerman. All were between 8 and 10 years old at the time of their abduction. Evidence suggests they were held in these bunkers for periods ranging from 6 months to over 4 years before their deaths. Holbrook paused, letting that information settle. The primary suspect in their abduction and captivity was Douglas Fairmont, the camp's assistant director, who died in July 1983, under circumstances we are now reinvestigating. However, evidence strongly suggests Fairmont did not act alone, and that the bunkers were maintained and supplied for years after his death. A murmur rippled through the crowd. Holbrook raised her hand for quiet. We have reason to believe that one child, Lily Maria Torres, age 9 at the time of abduction, survived captivity and emerged from the bunkers in 1991 at approximately 17 years of age. We are actively searching for Ms. Torres, who would now be 50 years old. The screen changed to show 3 images side by side. 9-year-old Lily from the camp photo, the grainy hospital security footage from 1991, and an age-progressed composite showing what she might look like today. A woman with dark hair touched with gray, serious eyes, the ghost of that 9-year-old still visible in her features. If you are Lily Torres, Holbrook said, speaking directly to the cameras, or if you know someone who might be Lily Torres, please contact our tip line. You are not in any trouble. We simply want to help you and to give you the answers you deserve about what happened to you. The questions began immediately, shouted from every corner of the room. Holbrook fielded them with professional calm, revealing what she could while protecting the integrity of the ongoing investigation. Yes, the deaths appeared to be from illness and accidents rather than direct violence. Yes, evidence suggested the children had been told nuclear war had destroyed the surface world. Yes, they were investigating Fairmont's associates and anyone who might have been complicit in the crimes. Vanessa slipped out before the conference ended, unable to bear the circus atmosphere. Outside, she found Dr. Patricia Chen standing in the parking lot, smoking a cigarette despite the no-smoking signs. I didn't know you smoked, Vanessa said. I don't. Quit 20 years ago. Chen took a long drag. This case made me start again. They stood in silence for a moment, watching the news vans and satellite trucks. I've been analyzing the journals more thoroughly, Chen said. The psychological manipulation Fairmont employed was sophisticated. He didn't just tell the children the world had ended. He created an entire constructed reality. Fake radio broadcasts on a schedule. Carefully controlled information about the surface that became progressively more hopeless. He even simulated radiation detector readings. Why go to such lengths? Because he genuinely believed he was saving them. His delusion was complete. And children are remarkably adaptable. Their brains are plastic, capable of accepting new realities, especially when reinforced by a trusted authority figure. Within months, those children would have internalized the nuclear war narrative completely. Vanessa thought about Owen. 9 years old and trusting, believing his teacher when told the world above was gone. How would someone survive that? Psychologically, I mean. How did Lily make it 8 years? Chen was quiet for a long moment. By becoming whatever she needed to be. The journals suggest she was intelligent, resourceful, but survival in that environment would have required more than intelligence. It would have required ruthlessness. What do you mean? Limited resources, 7 children in confined spaces, an authority structure that collapsed when Fairmont died. Someone had to maintain order. Someone had to make decisions about food distribution, about who got medical attention, about enforcing rules. The journals mention Lily taking on leadership roles, but leadership in that context would have meant making impossible choices. The implication made Vanessa sick. You think she might have been responsible for some of the deaths? I think she survived when 6 others didn't, and that survival likely required actions she would have been deeply ashamed of, which might explain why she disappeared after leaving the bunkers, why she might not want to be found. Survivor's guilt combined with actual guilt for things she was forced to do. Vanessa's phone rang, an unknown number. She almost didn't answer, but something made her accept the call. Is this Vanessa Kellerman? A woman's voice, middle-aged, nervous. Yes. Who is this? My name is Dr. Sarah Vance. I'm a therapist in Portland, Oregon. I've been watching the news coverage about the bunkers and the search for Lily Torres. I think... She paused, took a breath. I think one of my patients might be her. Vanessa's heart hammered. Why do you think that? I can't discuss patient details, but I can tell you that she's a woman in her early 50s who has been seeing me for trauma therapy. She has significant gaps in her memory, and what she does remember from her childhood doesn't match public records. She's always claimed she grew up in isolation, that her father told her the world had ended. I thought it was a delusion related to her trauma. But now, what's her name? She goes by Elena Marsh. She works as a night custodian at a library, lives alone, avoids people. I can't contact her directly to ask about this, therapist-patient confidentiality. But if you were to... the library where she works is the Multnomah County Central Library. You're telling me where to find her. I'm telling you where someone works who might have information relevant to your investigation. What you do with that information is up to you. The line went dead. Vanessa immediately called Detective Holbrook, but the detective was still in the press conference. She left a message. I have a lead. Portland. I'm going to check it out. She was in her car and on the highway before she fully processed what she was doing. The drive to Portland would take about 3 hours. It was 1 in the afternoon now, which meant she'd arrive around 4. The library would be open. Elena Marsh, if that was really Lily, might be there. Vanessa drove with single-minded focus, her hands tight on the wheel. She had waited 41 years. Now she was 3 hours away from potentially meeting the only person who knew what had really happened to her brother. The call came through her car's Bluetooth system 2 hours into the drive. Detective Holbrook, her voice tight with controlled anger. Ms. Kellerman, you need to stop and turn around right now. I have a lead. A therapist called me. I know. Dr. Vance called us too, through official channels. We're handling it. I'm already halfway there. This is an active investigation. You cannot approach a potential witness without... She's not a witness, detective. She's a victim, and I'm the sister of another victim. I have every right... You have no legal right to interfere with this investigation. If you approach this woman and compromise our case, or if you traumatize her, you could face charges for obstruction. Vanessa pulled over on the highway's shoulder, emergency flashers on. "Detective, please, I won't approach her. I just need to see her. I need to know if it's really Lily." Holbrook was silent for several seconds. "Where are you now?" "About an hour outside Portland." Another pause. "Detective Chen and I are already en route. We'll meet you at the library at 5. You will wait for us in the parking lot, and you will not approach the building until we arrive. Do you understand?" "Yes." "I mean it, Ms. Kellerman. This is not negotiable." Vanessa agreed and ended the call, but she didn't turn around. She continued south toward Portland, her mind racing with possibilities. What would she say to Lily Torres if she got the chance? How do you bridge 41 years of horror and survival? She reached Portland at 4:30 and found the Multnomah County Central Library, a grand historic building in the heart of downtown. She parked across the street where she could see the main entrance but followed Holbrook's instructions. Stayed in the car, waited. The library closed at 6. Vanessa watched patrons exit, students with backpacks, elderly people with armloads of books, parents with children. Normal people living normal lives, unaware that somewhere inside that building was a woman who had spent her childhood in an underground bunker believing the world had ended. At 5:15, Detective Holbrook and Detective Chen pulled up in an unmarked car. Holbrook approached Vanessa's window. "She's here. Dr. Vance confirmed that Elena Marsh is working tonight. We've been in contact with library administration. They're going to ask her to come to the back office for what she'll think is a routine HR matter. We'll meet her there." "I want to be there." "Absolutely not. You'll wait." "Detective, please. I won't say anything. I'll stay back. But I need to see her face when you tell her who she really is. I need to see if there's any recognition, any memory of the children she lived with. I need to see if she remembers my brother." Holbrook studied Vanessa's face for a long moment, then sighed. "You stay behind us. You don't speak unless I explicitly give you permission. If she becomes distressed, you leave immediately. Agreed?" "Agreed." They entered through a back entrance, escorted by a nervous library administrator. The building smelled like old paper and floor polish. Fluorescent lights hummed overhead. They were led to a small office on the second floor, furnished with a metal desk and several chairs. "Ms. Marsh will be here in a few minutes," the administrator said. "She thinks it's about her annual review." Vanessa positioned herself in the corner, trying to make herself invisible. Detective Holbrook and Chen sat at the desk, arranging their materials. Vanessa's heart pounded so hard she was certain everyone could hear it. Footsteps in the hallway. A knock on the door. "Come in," Detective Holbrook said. The door opened, and a woman entered. She was thin, almost fragile, with dark hair pulled back in a severe bun. She wore a custodian's uniform, dark blue work pants and a matching shirt. Her face was lined but not old, weathered in a way that suggested hardship rather than age. She moved cautiously, like someone accustomed to making herself small in the world. "I'm Elena Marsh," she said, her voice quiet. "Mr. Patterson said you wanted to see me about my review." Her eyes swept the room and landed on the detectives. Vanessa saw the instant wariness, the subtle shift in posture that suggested a lifetime of being ready to flee. "Ms. Marsh, I'm Detective Holbrook, and this is Detective Chen. We're with the Washington State Police. We'd like to ask you some questions, if you don't mind." Elena's eyes darted to the door, calculating distance. "Questions about what?" "About your past, specifically about where you grew up." "I don't talk about my past." "We understand, but we've recently made some discoveries that we believe might be relevant to your life. Please, sit down." Elena remained standing, her body tensed like a wire. "I haven't done anything wrong." "We know. You're not in any trouble. We just want to help." "I don't need help." But despite her words, Elena's eyes were fixed on the photographs Holbrook was laying on the desk. The camp photo, the bunker entrance, the age-progressed composite. And Vanessa watched as every drop of color drained from Elena Marsh's face. Elena's legs gave out, and she collapsed into the nearest chair. Where did you get that picture? Her voice was barely a whisper, her eyes locked on the camp photo. Where did you get that? Detective Holbrook leaned forward gently. Ms. Marsh, we need to ask you something directly. Is your real name Lily Torres? The woman's breathing became rapid, shallow. Her hands gripped the edge of the desk as if anchoring herself to reality. For a long moment, she didn't speak, just stared at the photographs with an expression Vanessa couldn't quite read. Fear, yes, but also something else. Recognition, memory, pain. I don't know, Elena finally said. I don't know who I am. Detective Chen pulled out a chair and sat beside her, his voice calm and professional. Can you tell us what you do remember? About your childhood, about how you came to be Elena Marsh? Elena's eyes flicked to the door again. Am I being arrested? No. You're a victim, Ms. Marsh. We're investigating crimes that were committed against you and other children. Anything you tell us will help us understand what happened. I can't. Elena's voice broke. I don't remember clearly. It's all fragments, nightmares mixed with memories. My therapist says it's trauma-induced dissociation. Tell us what fragments you do remember, Holbrook said gently. Elena closed her eyes. Darkness. I remember living underground for a very long time. There was a man who said he was protecting us from the radiation. He said the bombs had fallen, that everyone was dead, that we were the only ones left. Who was this man? I don't remember his name. I don't remember his face, just his voice, telling us we were safe, that we were the future. Her hands trembled on the desk. But then he was gone, and it was just us, just the children. How many children? 7. There were 7 of us at first. Elena opened her eyes, tears streaming down her face. But they died. One by one, they died. And I couldn't save them. Vanessa pressed her hand to her mouth, suppressing a sob. In the corner, she felt invisible, witnessing a truth she had spent decades seeking. Do you remember any of their names? Detective Chen asked. Elena shook her head. I tried to forget. When I finally got out, when I saw that the world was still here, that it had all been a lie, I couldn't bear to remember. So I made myself forget. What do you remember about leaving? It was dark, the tunnels. I had to crawl through collapsed sections. I thought I would die in there, buried alive. But I kept going because... She stopped, her face contorting with pain. Because there was no one left to save. I was the only one left. Detective Holbrook slid the camp photograph closer to Elena. Does this picture mean anything to you? Elena looked at it for a long moment, her fingers hovering over the faces, but not quite touching. I remember sunshine. I remember trees. I remember feeling safe before... She stopped abruptly, before the world ended. Except it didn't end. It was all a lie. Ms. Marsh, we believe you are Lily Torres. You were 9 years old when you were taken from Camp Whispering Pines in Washington State in July 1983. You were held in underground bunkers for 8 years. Your mother is still alive. Elena's head snapped up. What? Your mother, Rosa Torres. She's 78 years old, living in Olympia. She never stopped believing you'd come home. Elena stood abruptly, the chair scraping against the floor. No, that's not possible. He told us they were all dead. He showed us the reports, the news broadcasts about the bombs. He said... He lied, Holbrook said firmly. There was no nuclear war. Your family searched for you for years. Your father passed away in 1998, but your mother is still alive. And this woman... She gestured to Vanessa, who had been silent until now. This is Vanessa Kellerman. Her brother Owen was one of the children who was taken with you. Elena's eyes met Vanessa's for the first time. Vanessa saw nothing but confusion and pain in those dark eyes. No recognition at all. Owen, Elena whispered. Owen Kellerman. You remember him? Vanessa couldn't stop herself from asking. Elena's face crumpled. He was so small. He cried for his mother every night for months. I tried to comfort him, but I didn't know how. I was just a child myself. What happened to him? Vanessa's voice broke. Please, I need to know. Elena sank back into the chair, her face buried in her hands. He got sick. We didn't have medicine. I tried to help him. I did everything I could, but... She looked up at Vanessa with haunted eyes. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. Detective Chen placed a gentle hand on Elena's shoulder. Ms. Marsh, we need to ask you some difficult questions about what happened in those bunkers, about the other children, about how you survived when they didn't. I don't want to talk about it. I understand. But there are families who need answers, just like Ms. Kellerman needs answers about her brother. You're the only person who can tell us what really happened during those 8 years. Elena was quiet for a long time, her breathing slowly returning to normal. Finally, she spoke, her voice distant, as if recounting someone else's story. After the man died, I remember we called him teacher. There was no one in charge. We were just children trying to survive. The oldest ones tried to keep order, tried to maintain the schedules he'd set up, but it fell apart. Were you one of the oldest? I think so. I don't remember exactly, but I remember feeling responsible for the younger ones. I remember trying to be strong. What do you remember about the other children's deaths? Elena's hands clenched into fists. The first one was Amy. She got a fever. We didn't know what to do. We had some medicine, but we didn't know how much to give her or what kind. She died within a week. And the others? Jacob fell. There was a tunnel we used for water. Teacher had built it to connect to an underground stream. Jacob slipped and hit his head. He never woke up. Elena's voice became mechanical, reciting facts without emotion. Marcus got sick too, like Amy. His lungs. He couldn't breathe. We tried to help him, but we didn't know how. Hannah? Elena's face twisted. Hannah tried to escape. She found a ventilation shaft and climbed up, but she got stuck. We could hear her screaming for days before. She stopped, unable to continue. Vanessa felt tears streaming down her face. The horror of it. Children listening to their friend die slowly, unable to help. What about Sophie? Detective Holbrook asked gently. Sophie stopped eating. She just gave up. She said there was no point in surviving if this was all there was. She said she wanted to go home. I tried to make her eat, tried to tell her we had to keep surviving, but she wouldn't listen. Elena looked up at the detectives with eyes that had seen too much. I forced her. I held her down and tried to make her swallow food because I was so terrified of being alone. But she fought me. She wanted to die. And eventually, I had to let her. The room was silent except for Elena's ragged breathing. When did you realize the nuclear war never happened? Detective Chen asked. I found teacher's journals, hidden in his room. I was looking for supplies and I found them. He wrote everything down, the planning, the construction, the lies. He wrote about how proud he was of creating a perfect survival scenario for us. Elena's voice filled with bitterness. It was all an experiment to him. We were just specimens in his twisted study of human survival. How long after finding the journals did you leave? Months. I couldn't process it at first. My entire reality was a lie. I had spent years believing the world was gone, that we were alone. Learning the truth was... She searched for words. It broke something in me. I didn't know who I was anymore. Was I Lily Torres, the girl who disappeared? Or was I whoever I'd become in those bunkers? Why didn't you contact police when you left? Holbrook asked. I tried, in the hospital in Spokane. I told them who I was, where I'd been. They thought I was delusional. They wanted to commit me to psychiatric care, register me in the system, and I panicked. I'd spent 8 years in a cage. I couldn't bear the thought of being locked up again, even in a hospital. So you ran. I ran. I've been running ever since. I changed my name, found work that didn't require much documentation, kept to myself. I thought if I could just forget, if I could just bury Lily Torres deep enough, I could be normal. I could have a life. Elena looked at the camp photograph again, her finger finally touching the image of young Lily. But she never went away. The girl I was. She's been with me this whole time, crying to go home. Vanessa couldn't stay silent any longer. Your mother would want to see you. She never stopped loving you. Elena's eyes met hers, filled with fear and longing in equal measure. How can I face her? How can I tell her what I became down there? The things I did to survive? What things? Detective Chen asked quietly. Elena stood abruptly. I need air. I can't breathe in here. Holbrook nodded. Let's take a break. Ms. Marsh, would you be willing to continue this conversation tomorrow? We'd like to arrange for you to meet with specialists who can help you process these memories in a healthier way. I don't know. I need time to think. We understand, but please know that you're not in any trouble. You were a child. Whatever you had to do to survive, you were a victim of circumstances beyond your control. Elena moved toward the door, then paused. She turned back to Vanessa. Your brother, Owen, he talked about you. In the beginning, before the forgetting started, he talked about his big sister Vanessa. He said you were brave. He said he wanted to be brave like you. Vanessa's composure finally shattered. She covered her face with her hands, sobbing. Elena hesitated, then crossed the room and awkwardly placed a hand on Vanessa's shoulder. He wasn't alone when he died. Elena said quietly, I was with him. I held his hand. I told him stories about the surface world, about sunshine and trees and birds. I don't know if that helps, but I wanted you to know. Then she left, the door closing softly behind her. Vanessa sank into a chair, her entire body shaking. Detective Holbrook knelt beside her. Are you all right? 41 years, Vanessa said through her tears. 41 years of not knowing. And now I know, and it's so much worse than I imagined. But also, she looked up at the detective. He wasn't alone. That's something. Detective Chen was gathering the photographs. We'll give Ms. Marsh some time, but we'll need to interview her more extensively. There are still questions about Fairmont's accomplices, about how the bunkers were supplied after his death. Do you think she'll cooperate? Holbrook asked. I think she needs to, Chen replied. She's been carrying this alone for 33 years. Maybe it's time to let someone else help shoulder the burden. They left the library as evening fell over Portland. Vanessa stood on the sidewalk, watching people pass by on their way home from work, to dinner, to ordinary lives. Somewhere in the building behind her was a woman who had survived the unimaginable and was now forced to relive it. Lily Torres had come home, but the question remained, could she survive the homecoming? Elena Marsh, Lily Torres, disappeared again that night. When Detective Holbrook tried to contact her the following morning to arrange a formal interview, the library administrator reported that Elena had called in sick. When they went to the address on file, they found a small basement apartment that had been hastily abandoned. Clothes still hung in the closet, dishes sat in the sink, but the few personal items that might have mattered, photographs, documents, whatever few precious things Elena had accumulated in her 33 years of running, were gone. Vanessa received the news while sitting in her motel room, staring at the wall. The initial devastation of learning Owen's fate had given way to a hollow exhaustion. She had spent the night replaying Elena's words. He wasn't alone when he died. I held his hand. We've issued a request for her to contact us voluntarily, Detective Holbrook said over the phone. We're not treating this as a fugitive situation. She's a victim, not a suspect. But Ms. Kellerman, I need you to understand that if she doesn't want to be found, we may have to respect that choice. She's the only witness to what happened in those bunkers. Doesn't that matter? It matters enormously. But she's also a deeply traumatized woman who's been protecting herself through anonymity for 3 decades. We can't force her to relive her trauma, no matter how much we need the information she has." Vanessa ended the call and stared at her phone. Then, on impulse, she called Dr. Sarah Vance, the therapist who had first alerted them to Elena's existence. "Ms. Kellerman, I can't discuss my patient," Dr. Vance said immediately. "I know, but if she were to contact you, would you tell her something for me?" A pause. "That depends on what it is. Tell her that Owen's family doesn't blame her for his death. Tell her that we're grateful she was with him. Tell her that coming forward won't destroy her. It might actually be what saves her. If she contacts me, I'll pass that along. But Miss Kellerman, you should understand that Elena has built her entire adult life around avoidance and self-protection. Breaking down those defenses could be catastrophic for her mental health. Living with that burden alone for 33 years has already been catastrophic." 3 days passed with no word from Elena. The investigation continued without her testimony. Forensic teams completed their excavation of the bunkers, recovering the final remains and cataloging thousands of pieces of evidence. The media coverage intensified, with psychological experts debating on news programs about the long-term effects of the kind of isolation and manipulation the children had endured. Vanessa remained in Washington, unable to bring herself to return to Seattle. She visited the bunker site each day, watching as the excavation neared completion. She stood at the entrance and tried to imagine Owen down there in the darkness, tried to picture the child he had been transforming into someone who accepted an underground existence as normal. On the 4th day, Dr. Patricia Chen found Vanessa standing beside Lily's wall carving. "We've completed our psychological profile based on the evidence," the forensic anthropologist said. "Would you like to hear it?" They sat in the command trailer while Dr. Chen opened her laptop. "Based on the journals, the physical evidence, and Elena's limited testimony, we can construct a fairly detailed picture of the group dynamics in the bunkers." She pulled up a timeline. For the first 6 weeks after the abduction, Douglas Fairmont maintained complete control. He established routines, conducted lessons, reinforced the nuclear war narrative. The children, while frightened, adapted because children are remarkably resilient and because they trusted him. "Then he died," Vanessa said. "Then he died." And the power structure collapsed. The older children, Lily, Hannah, and Jacob, attempted to maintain order, but without adult supervision, without the authority figure, the system began to break down. Dr. Chen clicked to the next screen. Amy's death from fever occurred about 6 months in. This was likely natural, a simple infection that would have been treatable with proper medical care, but it established a pattern. The environment was lethal. The children realized they could die. That would have been terrifying. Beyond terrifying, it would have fundamentally altered their psychology. They were already traumatized by the abduction and the false belief in nuclear apocalypse. Now they understood they were mortal, vulnerable, and completely dependent on their own resources. Dr. Chen's expression grew darker. This is where things became complicated. Resources were limited: food, water, medicine. Someone had to control distribution. Someone had to make decisions about rationing. Based on the evidence, that person was Lily. Vanessa felt cold. What did she do? We found journals that she kept, hidden in a different location from Fairmont's. Her entries describe implementing a system, work assignments, behavior codes, reward and punishment structures. She essentially became the authority figure the other children needed. That doesn't sound sinister. It wasn't at first. But look at this entry, dated approximately 1 year after the abduction. Dr. Chen turned the laptop screen toward Vanessa. The handwriting was childish but precise. "Marcus won't stop crying. He keeps everyone awake. He's using extra water for tears. Hannah says we should lock him in the small room until he learns to be quiet." I said yes. I'm the leader now. I have to make hard choices. Vanessa's stomach turned. The punishment cell. The punishment cell. We found evidence that it was used extensively in the years after Fairmont's death. Scratches on the walls from multiple different hand sizes, suggesting different children were confined there at different times. Dr. Chen clicked through more entries. Lily's journals show progressive deterioration of her moral reasoning. She started making utilitarian calculations: who was most valuable to group survival, who was consuming too many resources, who was causing problems. By year 3, her entries are clinical, detached. One entry read, "Hannah died in the ventilation shaft. She was trying to escape. I knew she was stuck but didn't tell the others for 2 days because her screaming was making everyone upset." Sometimes the leader has to let nature take its course. Vanessa covered her mouth, feeling bile rise in her throat. She let Hannah die on purpose? She made a calculated decision that Hannah's escape attempt was destabilizing the group.